The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. A truckers group is opposing the impending toll hike in Cavitex. The Toll Regulatory Board recently approved higher toll fees for the expressway. On the R1 Expressway from Seaside Drive in Parañaque to Zapote Las Piñas, Class 1 vehicles will soon have to pay 35 pesos from 33 pesos, Class 2 vehicles 70 pesos, while Class 3 vehicles will pay 104 pesos. Similarly, from Zapote Interchange to Kawit, the toll fee for Class 1 vehicles will increase to 73 pesos from 64 pesos. For Class 2, 145 pesos, and Class 3, 219 pesos. The Confederation of Truckers Association of the Philippines said the current toll fees were already too expensive, and with this new round of toll hike, they said they have no choice but to pass on the additional charges to clients. There are still no details yet as to when this new toll hike will be implemented.
Dapat hindi napayagan yan dahil sa iksi ng Cavitex. Yan ang pinakamahal na toolkit sa lahat ng naniningil ng toll fee.
Now here are other top stories we're watching around the world. The 4 Colombian indigenous children who survived a plane crash in Amazon have been released from the hospital. The children, aged 1 to 13, lived for more than 5 weeks in the jungle, eating fruits and making their own shelter. The siblings will remain under the care of Colombia's Child Welfare Institute until final custody arrangements are decided in 6 months' time. At least 22 people died while 14 are still missing after massive flooding and landslides in South Korea. This was triggered by days of heavy downpour, which caused a major dam to overflow. More deaths are expected as local government agencies assess the damage nationwide. And in New Zealand, some World Cup teams received a traditional Maori welcome on Saturday ahead of the tournament kickoff. 8 teams will play their first Women's World Cup when the expanded tournament begins on July 20. First up will be a match between New Zealand and Norway. Defending champ United States will start their World Cup campaign on July 22 against tournament debutants Vietnam. And we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Some employers are looking to track their workers' wellness metrics to prevent burnout. Bloomberg Quick Take tells us more.
Burnout. You've heard about it spoken many times in the workforce when employees feel they're at their breaking point. Companies want to do something about it. But what? Research firm Deloitte and Workplace Intelligence says tracking employee wellness data could help. Their study showed 85% of C-suite executives think that organizations need to require mandatory reporting of well-being metrics.
You can gauge workforce sentiment with surveys and interviews and focus groups with your workforce, but you can also look at observable proxies. So, for example, the percentage of workers that are using their time off, the amount of overtime people put in, the volume of work-related emails that get sent after hours. You could look at attrition rates. You could look at analyzing insurance and claims.
While executives feel this type of data is important, only half of those surveyed think their own companies are doing enough to promote transparency. On top of that, Fisher says there's also a disconnect between what executives and employees feel their companies are doing to track worker well-being.
There is an ongoing lack of transparency and trust with the workforce and leadership. And there's a number of reasons for that. It doesn't mean that the C-suite is ill-intended. I think that they are well-intended. It's just that these types of things are hard to communicate.
The Securities and Exchange Commission sees the benefit to the metrics. The regulator wants to require public companies to disclose what it calls human capital information, a worker's economic value that could include workforce health.
Investors are sort of starting to see human capital as an essential component in creating long-term shareholder value, which makes sense, right? Because when you have a fulfilled workforce, you probably have a more productive company. So you're sort of seeing companies interpret what human capital is on their own.
Many firms say the information will serve as an important tool to recruit and retain talent, as it shows how the company places a strong emphasis on wellness.
Let's now take a quick look on other stories we're keeping our eyes on. The Social Welfare Department will start the pilot run of its food stamp program on July 18 in Tondo, Manila. 50 food-poor families will be given tap cards with 3,000 pesos worth of food credits monthly to be used at Kadiwa stores and other authorized groceries. The shoe removal policy is back at the NAIA as part of enhanced security measures. This policy only applies to passengers traveling abroad. And one lawmaker is pushing to have a task force to beef up the country's claim on the Spratly Islands. The proposed task force will be under the AFP and will have an initial funding of 1 billion pesos. And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 10:45 in the morning as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.